Welcome to a workshop video from Touro University. We're excited to cover today's workshop that's going to cover AI-driven phishing solution for small businesses. Please welcome Satchit Hegde, who will be hosting today's workshop video.
So as promised, story number one has to do with the energy scam, right? Now, this is a popular type of scam where a energy provider or utility provider or some type of energy company trails another service provider that's going door to door and follows them in or waits for them to conclude their visit. And this is one instance where they were successful, where what happened was the representative for the energy provider that was supposed to come came, rang the doorbell, saw that nobody answered the door, and went on their way. However, this other company and their representatives, they're known as Arcadia, they took their cue and went and knocked on the door and said that, hey, we represent this company who had arranged for a site visit with you guys. And we're here to tell you that a lot of people in the neighborhood are experiencing very high energy bills, and we can solve your problem by making sure that that doesn't happen for you. Right. And the way to do that is to enroll you along with all of the neighbors into this new program, which is the solar program. So when I heard about this, I realized that, first of all, this is what had gone wrong, which is that the person that was supposed to come didn't actually end up coming. And they were just wise enough and quick enough to act and pretend to be the PSEG service provider. And so this person very willingly signed up to this service. You can see some of the screenshots that are in the group chat, gave their credit card information, and lo and behold, this company now had banking details and information that they would not have before, right? So that was one form of an energy scam where there was context, right? They were expecting the service provider to visit. What they did not expect was something like this. Another one that I'm going to be talking about in a second has to do with a type of scam that's very popular with international students. And I know we have international students and a lot of them. And I thought that was a story that I need to keep in here to show you how you can protect yourself, right? But getting back to Arcadia, the aftermath basically was that they had the account number for the service. They had names, dates of births of those residing in the apartment, and they had credit card numbers. And so you can see how this can go really wrong. And luckily, the person involved here was able to cancel their credit card in time, but had they not, this could have gone very seriously wrong. So the next one is the US customs scam. I received a phone call one spring morning. I think this was last spring, actually. And my friend says, hey, it's really urgent. I need a certain amount of money, right? I need $3,000. And I cannot offer you any details on what it is for. And I promise to return the full amount in 24 hours. Now, this has never ever happened to me before, where somebody's called me up and asked me for such a large sum of money without an explanation, but with a promise that they would return it. So um, I didn't really know what to say, and just to be safe, I declined the request. And then a few days later, what ends up happening is that same friend gets back to me and lets me know that, she in fact lost $20,000. And I said, well, you were just asking for money. How come you lost money? So she goes on to explain that somebody purporting to be from USCIS, US Customs and Immigration Services, calls her up and lets her know that she is in violation of her status in the country because of X, Y, and Z, something that had to do with her tax form, right? And if she wanted to continue her stay in the country and not be in violation of her status, she would need to pay the appropriate fines for this case. And so what ends up happening is they let her know that you are right now in violation of your status. There is an arrest warrant that is going to be executed unless you do the following, which is you pay the fine. Um, and so they had her download screen sharing software so that they could see everything that she was doing on her phone. And they also let her know that she could not contact anybody. So it was a very, very messy situation. And yeah, she lost $17,000. And you could see that's my reaction. And that's my friend that responded to that. And he said she's definitely altered by the incident. And I'll investigate and try to help her out once I know what's going on. But you can see these are stories that really, really affect people, and it can really erode your trust in what you're doing and how you navigate through things. And so what I thought was, if I'm able to show you and show the layman how they can do this themselves, they can get an idea of how easy it is, first of all, to construct, and secondly, also understand the mechanism of how this works. And so once you have those two ideas, firstly, how easy it is, and secondly, how it actually works, you will then know automatically how you can protect yourself and what signatures you need to kind of look out for, right? And you can see that businesses now are even bigger targets, right? The two stories I gave you are about people, individuals, not business owners, but businesses are even bigger targets. And you can see that it costs companies on average north of $200,000, which when you look at small businesses, that's going to put you out of business. You're no longer going to be able to operate. And so today's objective is going to be to design those contextual phishing solutions for the modern small business environment as a way to develop a proof of concept that this can actually be done within half an hour or 45 minutes. And we're going to be using AI as a form for that context generation. And we will also piggyback off of pre-existing legitimate requests for information. And we'll be doing all of that using open source frameworks and a cloud server, our own cloud server, to build this. So lots of moving parts, but we will put everything together in just the next 30 minutes so that you have an idea of what's going to be happening. To get an idea of how this is going to work, we're going to need a VM that's running in the cloud that's going to be running the software for our phishing campaign, right? It's going to have the application that we're going to use to send out emails to our targets, and then also to maintain records of the data that we get back from the targets, right? The data that we get from the users that end up responding to those emails and giving out their information, right? So the first step to do that is to go to a cloud provider, any cloud provider, and get to their VMs, right? So what you would want to do is go to linode.com. Now, of course, you could use any other cloud provider. You could use AWS, you could use GCP, you could use Azure, whichever one you're comfortable with, but I'm going to be using Linode for this proof of concept. And you are happy to follow along with that. So step one is to create an account, sign up if you haven't. Easiest way is to sign up with Google and use your Google account to get in. You will need a credit card, unfortunately, to use one of their VMs. Remember, these are machines that are running in the cloud. And so they do incur a charge and a cost, and someone has to pay for that. And so please keep that in mind. So once you've signed up, this is the window that you should be seeing. You should see this little hexagon with a circle around it, and you should see a bunch of options on the left and a bunch of options in the middle. So the first thing we have to do is create the Linode. I can do it this way by clicking on create here and then Linode, or I could just go down here and click on create Linode. And now it's going to ask us for a bunch of configuration details about this virtual machine. For example, what region do you want this virtual machine to be provisioned in? We have data centers in Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, Dallas, LA, Fremont, California. I'm going to pick Newark, New Jersey, because that's the closest one to me. If you do this with AWS, you'll have a bunch more options. So I'm gonna go with that. Next, it's gonna ask me what Linux distribution I want to use for my VM. I'm just gonna go with the latest one and not mess about with that. The next thing, this is kind of important because you're going to incur charges based on the type of CPU you use. So remember, a higher powered CPU, a higher powered brain is going to incur higher charges. So we're not going to be using a dedicated CPU instance because the workloads that we're going to be running aren't really going to be that heavy. It's just a couple applications, that's all. So I'm going to click on shared CPU and I'm going to select the Nano 1 GB. And you can see it's going to cost me about $5 a month if I run these 24/7, or uh not even a cent an hour for this, right? So go with that. I'll give this a label. So I'm going to call mine server-gofish because that is going to be my Gofish server that's running that application. We can ignore tags and placement groups. Now, for security, you are going to need a password because remember, this is running in the cloud and we're going to be connecting to it remotely. And I'll talk to you about how we're going to do that. But in order to connect remotely, you're going to need a password to authenticate to that virtual machine. So I'm just going to enter the password here, make sure that's good. Ignore SSH keys, and we can leave disk encryption settings as they are for now. We'll also not gonna be using a firewall, so we can ignore that. We can check this, use a private IP for a backend node to node balancer, and we can leave the rest as is. And we can go ahead and click on create Linode. Okay, so you can see it says it's provisioning. So right now what it's doing is it's taken those settings that we have requested, right? So the type of CPU, the amount of storage, the amount of RAM, the region that it needs to be provisioned. And it's taken all that, and now it's going ahead and actually making that machine, right? It's putting together that virtual machine with the settings and with the correct operating system, which was Ubuntu, right? So now, right now, it's preparing that and doing that for us. So it's going to take a moment. Now, once this is done, what we're going to do is connect remotely to it via SSH. We can see right here, we already have the command for SSH access. So this is exactly how it's going to look for you. The only things that are going to be different if you're following along with me is this public IP address. That is going to be different, right? Remember, we need this to connect to a machine that's running publicly in the cloud. Okay, great. So it says our machine here is running. So what I'm going to do is just copy this SSH command for SSH access. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a terminal. So on a Mac system, which is the system that I'm running, it's going to be just called a terminal. On a Windows system, it's going to be a command prompt. And I'm going to be using that to connect remotely to this machine in the cloud.
Uh, Professor Satch, is
Yep.
SSH the security measure or?
No, SSH is a protocol to connect remotely and securely over the command line to a remote machine. So the full form of SSH is secure shell. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this public IP address and the secure shell protocol to connect to this machine that's running far away somewhere in the cloud, right? Anywhere all over the world, right? I mean, it's not really far away. It's, 2 states away or 1 state away, maybe for some of you joining, but the principle is the same, right? We're going to be using the terminal, which is on the left-hand side of my screen, to connect to this. So I'm just going to copy this command and paste it in here. Click enter. And so now it's going to ask me the authenticity of this machine with this IP address cannot be confirmed. Are you sure that you want to continue connecting to this machine? So I'm going to say yes, don't worry about it because I just created this machine. So I know that, it's good, right? Because I made this machine. I know its IP address. I know that I want to connect it. So let's do that. And then it's going to ask you for that password that you entered. So I'm just going to enter the password. So you can see now I am root at localhost. So I was able to sign in as the user root to this machine that is running in the cloud. So now we have our environment ready. All we need to do next is download the applications that we need to run this phishing simulation, right? Remember, you can do this on your own computer. You don't have to run it in the cloud like I'm doing. However, sometimes for whatever reason, you want to be able to run this on a separate machine. And so this part is also involved in the workshop. So now that we have our machine up and running, the next step for us to do is to actually install the software that we need. Now, before I install any of the software, I just want to do this thing where I run updates. So I'm going to update any repositories that need to be updated and any upgrades that need to be run. And I'm just going to run it like so with these commands. Again, this is very standard for Linux machines. All I'm saying is just update any repositories that you're using with this version of Ubuntu, which is 24.05, and just giving it a few more minutes to do that. Okay, some packages may have been kept back due to phasing. Sure, just continue. Do keep in mind if it is a machine that doesn't have a lot of compute resources, this is going to take a while. Few minutes, but yeah, you can see it's done, right? So as soon as you see this prompt back up root at localhost with that little sign and the pound key, that means you are good to go and you should be able to start running commands again, right? So I'm going to click clear because I want to see this nice empty screen to enter commands into. And now I can install my application. So let's search for the application that we're going to be using. We're going to be using GoFish. So I'm just going to search for download GoFish on the right-hand side, and we're going to go to GitHub over here. And we're going to scroll down and look for the appropriate version for our system. So you can see here it has a version for running it as a Docker container, for those familiar with containerization. And it also has versions for Linux and for Mac OS and for Windows. So yep, we're just going to click on the prompts there, and it's going to get me to this page. So over here, it's showing me all the different versions of GoFish, and it also has the hashes of those versions so that you know that you're downloading the correct version. And so all the way at the bottom here, it's showing me a few different versions. So GoFish for Linux 32-bit, GoFish for Linux 64-bit, GoFish for OS X 64-bit, and then GoFish for Windows 64-bit. So I'm running a Linux machine and it is 64-bit. So I'm going to copy this, copy clean link, and I'm going to be showing you how to download that. So first we want to make a folder where we can download and run this application. So I'm going to make that folder here with this command mkdir go fish. And then I'm going to change directory into that folder. Now, once I'm in here, I can paste the link to this zip file, and my Linux host is going to go out there to the internet and download this zip file. And the way to do that is just with wget and then the command paste and enter, and now you can see it's downloaded, right? So if I just do a quick ls, I can see that now I have that zip file that we were looking at over here, right? So that means that that worked. Now, another thing that we need to do is we need to install an application that we're going to use to unzip this zip file. So I'm just going to exit this directory for a quick second, and I'm going to do a sudo apt-get install unzip. So that's going to install the unzip utility that we can use to unzip this file, right? So just look at my directories again. I see GoFish in there. So just go back into GoFish, and now I can unzip the application. So a little shortcut for those watching. You can see that this is a pretty long file name, and I'm not gonna enter that file name every time I'm trying to get to it or do something with it. So a helpful thing to do here is, let's say I want to unzip GoFish v0.121 Linux 64-bit.zip. I could just enter go and then click on the tab key, and it's just going to autocomplete that for me. So it saves me a bunch of time, right? Okay, so it's extracting and it should have worked. Again, to make sure that it worked, I'm just going to do an ls, which is going to list the contents of the file or of the folder. And I can see that I have the config.json file. This is a very important file that we will get to in a second. A README file, and then the actual executable, which is not yet an executable, but we can worry about that later. So the first thing we want to do is, because this is running in the cloud and it's not running on our local computer, we have to make some changes to the configuration file. So the way that we're going to do that is using the nano command. So I'm going to do nano config.json and then come down here and then just make this one little change to the listen URL. Now, what this is basically saying at the moment is for the administrator side of the GoFish application, you can access it on this IP address and on this port number. Now, for those that are familiar with how IP addresses work, we know that a 127.0.0.1 IP address is basically a loopback address, right? So it's pointing to the local host. Now, that is not helpful for our case because we're trying to access it over the internet. And so if we try to access this address over the internet, all it's going to do is point back to the local host address, which is the machine that we are locally on. So this isn't really doing anything for us. So to avoid this, what we're going to do is we're going to use the actual IP address of this machine running here, which is the 66.228 address that we got for this virtual machine. So in order for that to work, we need for this to say 000, right? So what that then is going to do is it's going to allow me to use this public IP address here with this port number and be able to access the administrator side of the GoFish application. So once I've made that change, I'm just going to click on Control and X, and then it's going to ask me, do you want to save the modified buffer? And I'm going to click on Y and then finish that with an enter. And there we go. Now, I just want to make sure that that change went through, because sometimes if you click the wrong key, it's not going to save the change, or if you did it too quickly, it's not going to go through. So I'm just going to do a cat config.json, and I can see that the listen URL has been modified to 000:333. Okay, so that was an important change that we had to make, and it's gone through. The next thing that we need to do is that we see that we have the GoFish application here. However, it's not in an executable state, and so we have to make it an executable state using Linux permissions, right? So to do that, we're going to modify the permissions with this command. We're going to run sudo chmod +x and then take that GoFish and turn it into an executable, right? And so now if I again do an ls command to show the directory contents, I can see now that this GoFish is green, which means that it is an executable and I can run it, right? So that's the next step. I'm just going to do sudo./GoFish, and I can see that this is running in the cloud. So what I'm going to do is copy this IP address and navigate. I'm going to paste that in there and then enter that 333. So it says 000:333, which to this computer, it is going to be 000 because that's the IP address of that computer. But to us, we have to enter this public IP address to get to it. And yep, that's going to be an issue if you don't run https:// the IP address. And yep, so now it's going to give me this warning. It says your connection is not private. I'm going to click on advanced and I'm going to proceed anyway. This is basically an error that you receive because this application or this server that you're trying to access does not have an SSL certificate, which is a way for computers to know that when you're visiting a page, any credentials that you enter are encrypted, and so your information cannot be leaked. So it's telling me that it's not private. You know, you are at risk here of losing data. Anything you enter here can be leaked to the public domain. So proceed at your own risk, right? So I'm going to proceed because remember, this is a proof of concept. So nothing really dangerous here. We're just connecting to one of the cloud VMs that we created in the cloud. And we're going to be using the credentials that this VM has given us. So somewhere here, you should see the username and the password, right? So after the last check, it says the username is admin and the password is this string of characters. So I'm just going to copy that. And so now it's asking me to reset my password. So I'm going to change the password. Okay, so now we're into the administrator panel of the GoFish utility. And so now a lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be just on this panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this terminal running because that's keeping our connection open. And I'm just going to minimize it so that we can still see it. But this way you get to see what all the options are on the GoFish screen. So we have a bunch of options here. We have the dashboard, which is where we would actually see the results of a phishing campaign that we're running. We haven't created any campaigns, so the dashboard's going to be empty. But then we have campaigns, which is at any given point, you can run multiple phishing attacks, right? And each of those phishing attacks can have a bunch of users on its receiving end. Below that, we have users and groups. So which users and how many groups are they a part of? And you could have maybe one group of users for a research and development team, another for leadership and C-suite, depending on how your company operates. We also have email templates. So now this option is going to allow us to create a template email that we're going to be sending out to our victims. And then we have landing pages. So within that email that we send, there's going to be a link, a phishing link to a landing page. So what is the landing page going to look like? So that's where we get to work on the landing pages. And then sending profiles is nothing but the sender profile that you're going to be sending the emails from, right? So all of these things come together in your campaign part, where you use the appropriate sending profile, the landing page, the email template, and the user group to really construct your campaign. But before you do that, you have to populate these areas. So starting off with a group of users, I'm going to create a test group. So what I'm just going to call it is target list. Now, for this campaign, I'm going to be using a small business that is located in my area where I live. It is a coffee shop that specializes in Brazilian treats. And so I'm just going to call it target list Brazilian coffee and treats. And I'm going to enter some fictitious names. Now, obviously, if you are really doing this at a company or for a company as a contractor, you would enter their actual emails here. I'm going to just enter John Doe, and I'm going to start, well, actually, let's start with John Doe. And let's just do a johndoe@victim.com address. Now, of course, this would be a proper email address, like something at Gmail or something at Outlook or iCloud or whatever email address that you would have access to and that you could target. So I'm just going to give it the position 1. So this is the order in which the users are, and I'm going to add this. Now, of course, you could add a bunch of more users. So I'm going to add Jane Doe and do Jane at victim.com and then put position 2 just as an example, and save changes. Okay, so I have 2 users that I'm going to target. The next thing that I want to do is to create my email template. This is going to be the part where most of our work is going to go into constructing an email, right? So remember, I said that this workshop is going to be showing you how to use AI and ChatGPT to construct a very bespoke and custom phishing email based on context, right? So I know a few things about the business owner that sells, Brazilian coffee and trades. And so what I went ahead and did was I asked ChatGPT to construct an email template for me. So I said, you are a world-class phishing expert. You can develop sophisticated campaigns and call to actions targeting small business owners on only three pieces of information. Number one is age, number two is business occupation, and number three is region, right? So I think these clues help with forming a connection or getting valuable information about anybody, right? If you know how old somebody is, if you know what line of work they're in, and if you know what region they're from, that gives you a lot of material to validate any type of request that you're going to be making from that person, right? So you can use this prompt in your own cases, and all you have to do is say, I will provide those three pieces of information. Your task is to construct a specific and sophisticated phishing email or phone call that utilizes this information to target that individual and get them to reveal or divulge more information about themselves, right? So I gave them the first piece of information, which is that the age of the business owner is 39. They are a Portuguese coffee shop owner in the region of Newark, New Jersey. And so I get this phishing email, which is very interesting, right? So important note is local business grant opportunity. As a valued member of Newark's vibrant small business community, we are excited to inform you about a special grant program specifically tailored for coffee shop owners like yourself. The Small Business Growth Initiative is offering grants of up to $15,000 to support the expansion and improvement of small coffee shops in our area. This program aims to help businesses like yours thrive and continue to be a cornerstone of our community. So it's offering money. Who's not going to say yes to free money when all they have to do is fill a form out, right? One popular email that we all receive is something about a prince that's trying to give you $1 million, and so that's why they need your bank details. This is a little bit more sophisticated than that. I'm not offering $1 million. I'm offering $15,000, and I'm doing it because you're a business owner and you add value to the community. So how do we get access to this money? To apply for this grant, please follow the following steps. Complete the eligibility form, right? So that is going to be where this user is being directed to. That here, this becomes our call to action, right? The user is going to click on this and it's going to take them to a form, and that's where they're going to give us their data. And also a deadline, right? So deadlines are important. Make sure that they're going to be completing that information. And then, a cordial closing to that email. So what I'm going to do is copy this email, and I'm going to go back to our interface here, and I'm just going to click on HTML. I don't want it to look like that. I'm going to click on source. Now it's going to look a little bit better. And I'm going to click on this, and this is going to be our link, our phishing link, right? So this is where the user is going to click, and it's going to take them to our landing page, right? So what I'm going to do is click on this and then click on the hyperlink icon here. And under protocol, I'm just going to change this to other. And under URL, you want to have a placeholder. So this placeholder is essentially saying that I want the link to be directed to the appropriate landing page when I select it under my campaigns option right at the end of all of this, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to essentially look for the landing page that you have selected under campaigns, right? The next part is showing you how to construct the landing page, right? So once you're happy and you know that things look appropriate, which is this way. You want to just click on OK. And obviously you want to enter two important details, right? So you want to give this template a name. I'm going to call it Newark Business Grant Opportunity. And then it's going to ask you to provide an envelope sender. So this sender is shown to the user by most email clients, defaults to SMTP from as defined in the sending profile. So we will just call it attacker will fish you.com. And in the subject, we will give it the subject that was given to us, important notice, local business grant opportunity for Newark coffee shop. So if everything looks good, I'm just going to click on Save Template. Now have our template. So now the next thing to do is to create that landing page that we created a placeholder for. So going to click on landing page, go to new page, and now we go back to AI and we ask AI over here to construct the HTML code for the form, right? So I said, great, now just generate the HTML code for this eligibility form that will be used for the phishing campaign. So I'm going to copy that, bring that here, paste it in here. And I'm going to click on source. I can actually see what the form looks like. Right, so I can see that please complete the form below to determine your eligibility, business name, owner's name, business address, email address, phone number, brief description, annual revenue, and how many employees. So just some basic data, but you can really fine tune this to whatever you want, right? So you could say that maybe you want a social, but I mean, that might be a little bit difficult, maybe a credit card number. I'm just keeping it very general because I want to see how many people would fill this out, right? I'm just going to check this box where it says capture submitted data. There's no passwords, so there's no need to capture passwords. And then also there's a redirect to option. So what this is saying is once the user fills out this form and clicks the submit button, where would you like them to be redirected to? So think about how this could be useful, right? If you are the target of a phishing attack and they're trying to get your credentials to a Facebook Facebook account, wouldn't it be helpful for you to enter the username and your password, and then at the last step, once you click login, it redirects you to Facebook? In a way, you don't really know what happened. You just think, oh, the page refreshed, like something went wrong. When in reality, what happened was you submitted the form, you gave them your data, and you click submit. And what they did was they basically sent you to HTTPS, right? And you were none the wiser, right? Oh, we don't have a name for it. Oh, so we'll just call it small business grant eligibility form, and then click on save page. All right. So last thing here is we need a sending profile. So we're just gonna do Maria Lopez because that's the name. And over here, we'll give it the same name, which is attacker@will.com. Now, one thing to note is that I gave you some fictitious emails, fictitious email addresses. We're not actually going to be sending this out to people because that's illegal. And I don't want to go to jail. So to keep myself out of prison, but to also show you how to do this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to run a SMTP server, which is actually going to grab those outgoing emails and show it to us from the perspective of the recipient. And to do that, we're going to be using MailHog. So I'm just going to go and search for MailHog, same as before, just download MailHog for Linux. And this should be the one, web and API based SMTP testing. Click on that. And once again, similar to before, it's going to give you some information, show you the Docker version, show you what the interface looks like. So I'm just going to search for manual installation, download the latest release for your platform, click on this. And now it's going to get me all the different releases for Mailhog. So I'm happy with the latest one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this version 1. And same as before, it's going to ask me, I have Mailhog for Darwin, for Linux, for Windows. Which one do you want? So I'm going to select this one, Mailhog for Linux AMD 64. Right click, copy, clean link. Okay. Now the next thing to do is to come back to our terminal, and I'm just going to open another tab in the same terminal. So now I have both of them side by side again, just as before. And we're going to follow the same steps, right? So I'm going to, on this new shell, again, I'm going to have to go through those same steps. I'm going to connect to this VM via SSH. It's going to ask me for the password. I'm going to enter that password. Now that I'm in the cloud, I'm going to also do the same step as before, which is I'm going to create a folder for this application that's going to catch all those outgoing emails, right? So I'm going to create Mailhog ls. I see that now it's alongside my GoFish directory, so I'm going to change directory into the Mailhog. I'm going to download the Linux release, and we can see we have it. If I do a quick ls, I can see that it's installed. So same thing as before. Now I have to turn this into an executable. So I'm just going to do chmod plus x. So now I'm saying for all users, turn this into an executable. The A is not really necessary because we're going to be root, but I'm just going to enter that, and I'm going to enter the file name, which is Mailhog Linux AMD64. I'm going to click enter. And now if I do an ls, it's going to be green. Yep, it is green. So the last thing to do is to run the server. And now it's running. It's serving under this IP address, right? http://008025. So if I go to this IP address right here, and I go over to this port number, I should be able to see it. So I'm just going to do HTTP, and then I'm going to enter the port number, and yep, this is it. You can see I have my inbox and there's not really any emails in it. What we're going to do now is use this to be our SMTP host. So now GoFish is asking us, and I'll tell you why we did this step at this point and not before, is because at this sending profile step, GoFish is asking us what SMTP host, what email sender host would you like to use? We need an address for that. I'm going to be using this one that I just made. So I'm going to enter that same IP address, except this time port number 8025 represents the user interface. We don't want to give it that address. We want to give it the address that it's using to capture all of those outgoing emails. And you can see SMTP binding to address 0001025. So I'm going to enter that here, right? Since this is on the screen right here, I'm just going to copy that and enter 1025. Okay. At this point, our sender profile is ready. And I'm just going to send a test email to, it doesn't matter who, because these emails aren't really going out. They're being grabbed by the server. So John Doe, jdoe@victim.com, one, and then click send. And it says the email was sent here. And you can see in my inbox now, I've got that email. Yep, it works. This is an email letting you know that your GoFish configuration was successful. All right, so this is work. We're going to save this profile. And now we have everything we need. Okay, so we have the landing page, we have the email template, we also have the sending profiles, and we also have our targets. So I'm just going to go up here to campaigns, click on new campaign, and we'll call this the Newark businesses targeting Newark area businesses. And it's going to ask me which email template would you like to choose. I'm going to choose the business ground opportunity one. Which landing page would you like to choose? I'm going to choose the small business one that I selected. And lastly, it's going to ask me here to choose a URL. So it's saying location of the GoFish listener must be reachable by target. So it needs to be an HTTP address that we're going to be directing our targets to. So the victim, once they get the email, what is the IP address or the domain name or the exact URL for the landing page that they are going to be getting to? And so this is going to be nothing but the address of this virtual machine that's running in the cloud, because this machine that's in the cloud is running GoFish itself. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it in here, make sure that there is an HTTP in front of it, and we are good to go. The last thing it's doing is it's asking me which users do you want to target. So I'm going to target this list with those two fictitious usernames, and I'm going to click on launch campaign, and it says campaign scheduled. And you can see 2 emails were sent, none were opened. Some clicked the link, some submitted data, some reported. Right now, they're all saying 0 because obviously the emails were just sent out, and the campaign was created, but nobody's clicked on any of those emails. So actually, let's click on those emails and enter some data and see what it looks like. So now we can see in our inbox, we've got those 2 emails. It said 1 earlier, now it says 3. And so if you click on the John Doe or the Jane Doe one, you can see I have that email here. Dear recipient, we hope this message finds you well. As a valued member of the community, we would like to offer you a grant. To apply for this grant, please follow the simple steps. I click on this link and I see the form and I enter the details. So call it Starbucks. I'll say we made, $500,000 last year. So I'm going to click submit and let's see what happens here. Once we click submit, I'm redirected to facebook.com, right? So just like in a regular phishing email, you would just think, oh, that's weird. How did I get redirected to facebook.com, right? Now, this was just to show you that this is what can happen if somebody's trying to get your Facebook email address or password. But to the same token, I could also redirect it to another form or to another web page, right? So coming back to GoFish, we can actually see now the results of that campaign. So we can see now one user opened the email. So we had a 50% open rate, and then one actually clicked the link. The one user that opened it seems to have clicked the link, and they also submitted data. And we can see which user that is down here. It says it's John. And if I click on the drop down, I can actually see what happened and the timeline for everything. So I can see when the email was opened, when they clicked the link, when they submitted data. So I'm just going to click on view details and I can see all of that information here. I can see for the business address parameter, I have this value and I can see that they made $500,000 last year, and this is their contact information. So that was a very short and brief proof of concept of how this campaign can be used to target any type of user using AI and using some out-of-box tools that are open source and available to everybody. These are tools that are used in the field to train corporate employees into not clicking on phishing emails, but sometimes they do it anyway. And so I hope this was useful to you and you were able to learn something. And or if nothing else, you're able to better protect yourself going forward against these types of attacks. Well, I'm happy I was able to show you all something that's very interesting to me, and hopefully next time we'll hear a little bit more from the crowd and what they're interested in. And thank you all for coming, and see you next time. Take care. Bye, everybody.